Pattern step number 2, major pentachords as a keyboard drill. I'm going to just demonstrate it first, and then I'll talk about some of the principles that you want to keep in mind. I'll start with C, and you can combine this with pattern step number 1, practice them both together so that you find the pattern silently. You can cluster it if you want. Then go to the lowest C on the piano. And down with the same hand, the top note just playing once. Then you could go up a 5th and do G. Silently find it, cluster it, then find it. And then right hand, go up to D. Alternatively, you could do C going up and down with the right hand, C going up and down with the left hand, G up and down, etc. all the way around the circle of fifths. Just give you more practice. Up to you. Okay, so that's the exercise. Now the principles behind it, things that you want to keep in mind. I'll try to be succinct. First of all, this is not just a way to get more practice at playing the pattern. It's actually focusing on a lot of aspects that are foundational. First is how to sit at the piano. And maybe you already know that, but just to be clear, you want your arm to be at the level of the keys. So maybe even slightly below is okay. If you're sitting up quite a bit higher with your bench so that your arm is, up here, it's harder to lift our fingers. We get in the habit of not lifting and of using our arm more than our fingers. We also have a harder time finding a neutral wrist. So a lot of reasons that I like to be at or slightly below. Now we don't want to be too below because then we're too heavy in our weight that we're pulling on the keys. So at or just slightly below. Second, we want our feet to be flat on the ground so that we can stand up at any time, that we're only sitting on maybe half of our bench for that same reason. We don't want to feel like we have to balance ourselves with our hands. We want to be completely balanced. Okay, so with that foundation, when you're going up and down the keys, do not scoot on the bench. You're a tree rooted in the center and your branches are going to sway up and down. If you have a problem, if you're smaller, if you're a child, you have a problem reaching the top, don't lean back or support yourself with your hands to get to the high ones. Lean forward and over, and if you can't reach still, then just don't do the very top or the very bottom. I'd rather you keep that rooted posture. Okay, so besides helping us feel comfortable with the complete range of the keyboard, the keyboard and giving us extra, work on those patterns, really feeling it in our fingers, there's several other reasons these keyboard drills are effective if you do it the right way. So I want to draw your attention to those details. First is our wrist, and I've mentioned this, I believe, in the first or in other pattern, or maybe it was a technique video, but you want to have this breathing, relaxed wrist, and any keyboard drill is going to help us practice that, so that when we go up each octave, we're releasing into this marionette doll position, like we're being held up by a string. And the reason why we don't want to come off this way is because we're locked and the blood flow therefore is not flowing as freely, and that can create problems over time with tendonitis, etc. So we want to always find every second we can to release and let blood flow. Okay, so rolling with this relaxed wrist. You can start really big and really slow to just exaggerate that motion, but as you get faster, it's just enough lift to, just be slightly above the keys and then drop back down. So we don't want to stay like this either, for that same reason that we want to be flowing and having that breathing wrist. So keyboard drills help us practice that healthier wrist position and relaxation, helping us learn to release. Keyboard drills also help us learn to jump an octave efficiently, quickly, to measure that distance with our arm and know what it feels like. There are lots of pieces in the piano repertoire where you'll have to jump really quick quickly an octave, and so you're already going to begin that skill through this keyboard drill. Lastly, since, in case you don't have lessons and a teacher that emphasizes the importance of the joint here, some people have an easier time, especially adults, keeping this strong. Little children are going to be really wobbly. As much as you can, continue to emphasize in your mind, especially when you're doing, the technique steps, that this joint is strong and not collapsed. Collapsing the joint, we lose control over our fingers. We're not going to be able to be as precise with our rhythms or with our expression. So we want to always practice that from the beginning. I think that is all the tips you need to know to do this well. For mastery, maybe for the last part of this video, you can skip ahead to this later when you're trying to test yourself. Here's what it would look like. C, I'll just do maybe half the circle of fifths. So I have C. Go down the circle of fifths. You're welcome to do this at home. You don't have to always go up a fifth. You could go down a fifth. So now we're going through the flats first. So F major has one flat in it, and that flat happens to be in this pattern, the first 5 notes of the pattern, I should say. You notice I left out the very top. It just didn't seem worth it. It's out of my range even. Okay, then we go down another fifth. And we're doing it down a fifth. This is probably good to understand. So I was in F, and if I had the complete scale picture, not just the first 5 notes, I could go down from F 5 notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which makes me land on B flat. So B flat is down a fifth, not B. Okay, because it's within F, I'm going down a fifth. Okay, so now B flat major. So I found it somewhere in the middle here where I could even play it to make sure it sounds right, if your ears can pick up on that cluster of 5 notes sounding right. Mastery could even be slower. I'll do the next one slower. So within B flat major, I'll use the scale picture since we're going down a fifth, and that will give us this B flat to go down from. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So E flat now. And you can use a circle of fifths chart to see this. You don't have to memorize the circle of fifths for this pattern step to be mastered. I'm only concerned about playing the pattern, not that you know what comes next in the circle of fifths. I'm using the circle of fifths all throughout so that eventually you're going to master that knowledge, but I don't assume that you're going to have that at the beginning. So go ahead and have that in front of you. You don't have to have that memorized like I do. Okay, so E flat major might be my last one. I'll show you. So this, they get complicated when they're in the black keys. So if you can do it quick, that's great. If you want to, even this fast is mastered enough to go on. Once again, if you want to leave out the really high ones, that's fine. You're never going to have to play your left hand that high up. I don't think I have ever had to, at least. All right. Enjoy learning those skills, reinforcing those skills. And just another reminder, if you haven't read that in the document or been told in other videos, you don't have to master this step before going on to the next. You just need to start learning it and keep it in your practice before going on to the next step. But this step could take months, weeks, or even a year, depending on what foundation you already have, your muscles, your hand size, and a lot of number of factors. So just begin it, and then you're welcome to go on to the next step after you've had some exposure to it.